Hi, Carlo. Looks like you're going to be taking care of the Richland slides, huh, today instead of Pete?
That would be news to me, but
Oh, okay. I just didn't see Pete on there, maybe.
Yeah, I think he's running a little late.
Oh, okay. All right. I just thought. Well, I have 301. We can go ahead and get started if everybody would like to. We're going from 3 to 5 after looking at all the jurisdictions who submitted slides. I started thinking about the amount of time, and 3 minutes seemed about right. I don't want to run too late just in case there's questions, and a lot of times we run over, talking about slides, but I'd like to keep it at 3 minutes. And then I guess we could just ask questions after each city or county or transit has a question, or we can wait till the very end. But I think maybe we should just have any questions after the presentations of each set of slides. But I'll go ahead and get started here. So every year we update the transportation improvement program. We have to have an open house. It's required by the feds and the state. And we usually have it this time every year when we update the transportation improvement program. So we usually have it around this time. We run the draft through the public and let the public know in the Hispanic newspaper in Pasco and the Tri-City Herald. And we've been having some farmers markets, let people know what's going on, when the open house is, to provide comments. And then after all the draft is done, and then we bring it to the TAC again in October, one last time, and then we hopefully run it by the board beforehand, which we will doing, and then it gets finally adopted in middle of October. And then it takes effect in the middle of January usually. But basically, it's secured transportation projects within our MPA, Metropolitan Planning area, which changed 2 years ago to include Benton and Franklin County and the portion of Burbank and Walla Walla, which is also our RTPO boundary. It just made sense to kind of include the whole area. And includes federal projects. We also include state projects that we don't really have any administrative powers over. And it's on a minimum of 4-year period. I know it does go out to 6 years, but it's that 4 years at the minimum for the feds require. And it all comes from the state, local jurisdictions, agency, public transit comes to our tip. I know this can be confusing. The regional transportation improvement program, and those projects move on and get submitted into the state transportation improvement program. And that's where you go and things start to get obligated, money starts moving and things like that. We have to, another requirement is to match it up with our MTP plan, and which we're working on right now. And there's some criteria there, as you can see. Congestion, safety, preservation. Some of these are recent, the last 4 or 5 years. Congestion management process, which is one of the requirements after we became a transportation management area, and from the 2010 census of over 200,000 population. That was one of those requirements. And here's a map we put in that is a requirement. It just shows the Title VI emphasis areas with the projects kind of scattered out and where they are at in those block groups. And the Title VI emphasis areas include LEP, language, limited English proficiency, underserved communities, below poverty, that sort of thing. And this is taken from the 2018 American community survey 5-year sample. And then here's our good news this go around for this last 2019 call for projects is we met our target number this year, so we're not going to lose any money. So we beat that by the end of this month. I know there's still a couple more out there to obligate, but that's the good news. We never want to go under and not meet that and lose our money. And then our next thing is the plan for a 22 call for projects in the spring, kind of based on the scoring criteria from the last time, but of course we're going to have to get together with the TAC and discuss this and try to improve it from last time, because I know there's some issues from last time that we could definitely improve on. So that's hopefully coming up in the spring, and then we can start the whole process of filling that tip up with a new batch of projects. So looking forward to that. And now I'll move on to Benton-Franklin Transit. Bill or Kevin?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'll start here. It looks like we did have a slide or two before this, but I'll start on this. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Sliger, Principal Planner at Benton-Franklin Transit. And I'm here just to talk about a few of the things we've been doing over the past couple months, years, and what we got planned for the future. So right now we have a $6.6 million effort to modernize our amenities out at the bus stops along our fixed route or bus system. And so we've really been working with both the cities and our customers, operators, to determine where we need these amenities most. We approached it from a standpoint that we were going to use data in terms of ridership numbers to really drive where we were going to distribute these amenities. So yeah, right now we've been building a lot more pads in each of the cities to get even more amenities out there. And in the next couple months, we'll be installing, I think it's up to 20 or 30 new shelters, benches, garbage cans, things of that nature around the Tri-Cities, and we'll continue to do so. So I'd also like to point out down there, yeah, in the lower right-hand corner, we're in a process of designing new bus stop signage. It's in the early stages, but yeah, we just want to create signs that are more visible and that really are easier to read, that are ADA accessible, and again, just improve the accessibility and visibility of our bus stop system. So next slide, please. So another effort that BFT is currently addressing is our regional mobility grants. So we got about $8 million in funds from WashDOT's regional mobility grant to construct 3 transit hubs. I know many of you have probably heard about these, especially if they're in your jurisdiction, but they are the Queensgate, West Pasco, and downtown transit hubs. So each of these are supposed to, we're really approaching transit centers from a different design perspective, in that we want them to be provide, multimodal features, but really be more small scale in how they operate. But also some of them will have that park and ride features. So Queensgate, we're furthest along. I'm happy to announce last month that we did purchase a strip of land just directly to the west of the Tulip Lane Park and Ride. So this will be a bus lane where we can provide service further out into West Richland, further out into Benton City, Prosser, as well as provide express service across town to places like CBC, Dayton Transit Center, and the employment centers in North Richland. We also have our $6 million expansion building project. So this is basically just constructing a new operations building on our MOA site down there on Columbia Park Trail. So that's going to be quite an endeavor. We're in the design process now with that. And yeah, next slide, please. So Queensgate, as I mentioned, we acquired the land. We're the furthest along of any of the projects. We're 90% design at this point. In the upper left-hand corner, you can kind of see a concept drawing of how the bus lane is going to work. On the upper lane where the buses lay over, that'll be a passenger area. Down to what would be south on the screen or down on the screen would be, we're leaving room and conduit open for charging areas for future electrification of our fleet. And yeah, we kind of wanted to approach it differently from a design perspective than we had in our past transit centers. So really we want to emphasize pedestrian-friendly, curbless design, and more modern passenger and operator facilities. So
Okay,
next slide.
I think that was it. I had to narrow it down to 3 slides, and Bill kind of let me know what he needed, and I don't know if I got
perfect.
it right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, perfect.
okay. So
no problem.
Okay, and next we're just gonna have Doug kind of fill us in on what's going on in Benton County and what's coming up and how that's going. Doug, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, really, this is a good. I mean, you're talking just like the projects and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like for instance, we're finishing off our bike path project over there in John Dallas Road. I should say finishing it. Next week we'll be paving that other lane, and then shortly after that, it'll be striped and we'll be done. Plymouth Road, we're sending on over our. We're slowly getting our documentation on over and reviewed over to local programs. And
okay,
getting stuff back. We're working on.
I appreciate it. You might visit with Glenda. Maybe there's.
All right there. Okay.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot more happening right now. I mean, we're just still finished buttoning up some stuff. I think the one project that went quite well was the bridges. The obsolete bridges we removed. That one over on Twin Bridges Road, the detour was long, but it wasn't up there for very long. It actually went quite smoothly. So we're pretty happy about that. And honestly, we didn't hear any complaints. I was really surprised. I thought I was going to get a lot of people, beating on us over that one, but it worked out very well. So I'm pretty happy about that.
All right.
So we're just going to start preparing for the rest of our other projects for next year. We're hoping to get out a County Road Administration Board funded project on Hanks Road. We'll try and get that going next year. And then we also have some HSIP funding. We're going to also work on getting out and advertising this year. It's all guardrails, so it can go any time of the year. Plymouth Road, well, we're not going to be able to pave it this year. Is unfortunate because we're just running out of time. So we'll get that sent out in fall and, advertise it out in fall. And then we'll just, set it up for next spring. And so next year we're going to have, a few projects over the spring and summer that'll help, take care of a few items that we have coming. Still looking forward to the next round of SDP projects and such. We do have some ideas we'd like to run. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Doug.
Welcome.
I don't know if there's any questions so far, but go ahead and let us know if you do have a question. Next up, we have Franklin County. Kathleen, are you up there? I tried to get this. I know it looks a little small, but
it's just
sorry about that.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're a little muffled, but
I know, it's these cameras. When COVID hit, nobody had cameras on their computers, so we ran out and got these second, plugins and stuff. Yeah, we're right in the middle of construction, our Pasco Colotis project that we've been working since 2013 to get funding for through state and feds, and then state and feds back and forth until we got enough to build it. And it's 3 miles, and it has like 30,000 cubic yards of excavation and 25,000 cubic yards of embankment and right away. As for 2022 and 2023, as you can see on our STIP, we have 3 bridge projects up north that are they're about 60 to 80 foot linear bridges, and one we'll be replacing with a large culvert. We also have through TAP, we try to put together a small trail or a sidewalk to Basin City from one of our major arterials. And hopefully we'll have that in construction next summer. And then we got a letter showing that we got some safety funding coming, so that we haven't got a award letter. It's just showing making sure that we got our scope, what we want, and are we ready to move forward. And then of course we got some additional funding that will let us do some reconstruction, structural, just basically overlay right in front of ConAg or Lamb Weston or wherever you want to call it, right here out of off of Glade North, next to the railroad and everything. And yeah, we have lots of projects and just running as fast as we can.
Yeah, sounds good. Up next, any questions so far? Not, we'll go to Kennewick and Soren.
Let me unmute myself. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Soren Juster, City of Kennewick Transportation Manager. And in a couple of minutes, I'll summarize our 6-year transportation improvement plan. This is our STIP, or 6-year transportation improvement plan, is based on the 20-year transportation system plan for the city of Kennewick that was completed in 2018. And you can skip to the next slide, Jeff, please. So we have both motorized and non-motorized projects on our STIP. We have 30 motorized projects and 13 non-motorized projects. I don't know if you left that list in there. You can skip through it briefly. This is an overview of our projects coded by year within our STIP, our 6-year transportation improvement plan, and coded by color, by year, as I said, and the numbers represented on this diagram are shown in a spreadsheet that, if you still have it, Jeff,
I don't think I did. I might have cut that out. Yeah,
that's fine. That's quite all right. Well, just give me 1 second to finish this. So it seems like you cut all the other slides, but so anyway, if somebody is interested, this is posted everywhere on our website, and I can provide it personally if you need the list or the description of these projects by year. We have one new project that was added to last year list of projects. The projects we're very excited about. It's a collaboration with City of Richland, and that is the Island View to Vista Field project. It has 3 main elements: the crossing of SR 240 with the bridge, grade separation at CCB to link the future Vista Field development and the Kennewick Entertainment development through a grade separation to link with this crossing of SR 240. And maybe the last major element is the connection of Keene Trail in Richland with the same crossing along the Union Pacific Railroad embankment. KPFF is currently in the process of concluding a study that was financed through BFCOG. As a matter of fact, in a week or so, we're going to get the first draft of that study. The only project, so anyway, this is a very exciting project for our communities as a whole. There is one project that was removed from last year and that is Washington Street improvements from First Avenue to Columbia Drive. I mean, those of you that drive through the area have seen that essentially being completed, which is having a punch list right now left on that. So that's essentially the only changes to our last year's. And at this point, I'd be glad to answer questions. And if you have any questions of us, I have to leave a little after 4 today. So.
Soren, so that was the planning study for Island View down to the river?
Yeah,
That's the one you're going to get the results of, or you have the results?
Yes. Well, the first results, first draft is coming up shortly here.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
Due to be completed later this fall. So that will be a good roadmap for us with that project. There was a slide in there, but due to shortness of time, probably cut it out. So.
Yeah, I think I did. All right, well, thank you, Soren. And I think we'll move on to Pasco.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. You can just jump right to the second slide if you want. We can stay there and I can go ahead and talk about these projects. So again, you know, from our 6-year tip, this was presented to council earlier this year. And again, maybe just emphasize, obviously, the number of projects that we've got in the Broadmoor area, including interchange improvements, Broadmoor corridor, also known as Road 100, interior road network, Sandifer Road 100, Burns Road, as well as multiple multi-use pathways, Broadmoor, Sandifer, Burns Road. That'll continue the Burns Road phases 1, 2, and 3 from Road 100 to Road 68 that I know that most of you might have been aware of previously. We'll continue that. The intent is to continue those multi-use or bike ped pathways. Also, south as well over the interchanges are intent. So part of those interchange improvements to provide bike ped multimodal considerations for the area as well. Maybe I'll back up just a second and talk our transportation system master plan that has been long underway, long expected, should be out in draft review. We've got the first draft right now. We anticipate that that'll be out shortly. As you can see from the listing here, we've got 56 projects. First year is a bit over 30 million. Much of that is still what's left of Lewis Street Overpass project anticipated, and that may carry over for a couple of years because of COVID last year and the things are associated with that. But the first couple of years are pretty heavily burdened as far as that goes. The other area of interest that I wanted to talk a little bit about today is probably out what is known as the Heritage Industrial Center, out along impacts to SR 12, A Street, and Sacagawea Road. Again, you may or may not know with the development that we've got out on Road 40 East. We'll have some improvements, including signals along A Street, Heritage, and Road 40 East. As well, we'll continue with WashDOT's help last year, the Sacagawea Trail that goes out to the park and ride and then back to the Sacagawea Park. We will continue that pathway along Road 40 East up and connect into A Street. So again, trying to make sure that we take a look at those multi-use pathways. As you know, from a time consideration, I'll just touch on a couple of the central Pasco projects that we have as well. You're all very, very familiar with Lewis Street Corridor, and I can share with you as I drive by that, every morning on my way to work, they're finally got some significant work going on with that one. South 4th Avenue festival improvements. That's the Peanuts Park area, and will be a continuation of Lewis Street from the overpass on through into town. And we'll continue those improvements down Lewis Street and then around Peanuts Park, which is South 4th Avenue. Some other projects that you may or may not be aware of is Sylvester Street Safety Program, which is a road diet that we've got on either side of the Sylvester Street overpass, which again is funding that we're we're searching for to be able to connect that together. And you'll see that the large green line there on the mapping. Another one that I know most of you are aware about is Argent Road, with phase 1 currently underway, phases 2 and 3. And again, that's out by the airport, will be soon to follow. So if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but just a quick overview.
All right, thanks, Dan. We'll move on. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay. Move on to Prosser. Is Marty out there?
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
I think I'm going to move on here. For a sec. You have to click on the screen, I see.
There we go. Yeah, this is the project that I wanted to emphasize since it was in the previous call for projects, is the Old Inland Empire Highway improvements from Wine Country Road west to Albro. This is a T3 freight route. What's driving it is a development at Albro. It's a 154 lot development that's currently under construction with the utility extensions from Gap west to Albro. And then phase 1 of their development has just been approved. We have the secured STP and TAP funding on this project. Recently submitted a TIB application for a 50% funding with a 50% local match. I'd like to point out though that if the TIB, if this project isn't selected, we will still have the local match for the construction obligation May of 2023. As far as other transportation projects, a TIB application was submitted for a 2-inch grind and overlay on Wine Country from the 6th Street Bridge north to Merlot. We also have secured funding, Safe Route to School project that's going to happen next year for the Kennyway sidewalk improvements. And then we have so much development going on right here in Prosser right now. So a lot of roads, a lot of streets are going to be dedicated to the city. Full build out of what we have on the books currently is 1,000 homes, new homes coming into Prosser. So we're growing. And I'll be, any questions, feel free to ask.
Prosser's kind of in a tough situation when it comes to STP funding, since the last census in 2010 that it went over 5,000 population, but under 50,000. So you're in that small urban area.
Correct.
And we're kind of, and you're the only one in the Benton-Franklin region. Well, Connell, we'll see what happens if Connell becomes small urban. This is the last 2020 census. That'll bring some more small urban money into the area, but you look at Waivikog and Yakima County, they have, I think, 7 or 8 cities that size, and they have a lot more money to compete with, but it's kind of tough for you to go after that funding. It seems like TIB would be a very one you'd have to rely on quite a bit.
Which we do.
Yeah. Let's see. Any questions? Richland's next.
Yes, I'll be presenting for Pete. Just fine. My name is Carl D'Alessandro. I'm the Transportation and Development Manager at the City of Richland. I didn't prepare these slides, so please bear with me. You can go to the next slide, yeah. So SR 240 Aaron Interchange and South George Washington Way intersection, both of those currently in study phase right now, but partially funded. There's 3 and 4 for the South George Washington Way intersection. That's includes intersection improvements and a grade separated pedestrian pathway. Vantage Highway Pathway Phase 2, which is also partially funded, would connect Phase 1 to Stevens Drive. Center Parkway North Extension would connect the Center Parkway just near the mall. and the south extension would connect Center Parkway to Leslie Road, which is also funded. And Van Giesen Shelterbelt Trail improvements is also funded, and our citywide streetlight retrofit planned for next year as well. And step-toe gauge intersection, which is partnership with Kennewick, is also on there. There's a lot of other projects. If you go to the next slide, in our unfunded priorities, which we'll be looking at, pursuing other funds for being the downtown connectivity improvements, which is the one-way couplet with George Washington Way and Jadwin Avenue. A big project that looking to get funded. Gage Boulevard improvements, Wright and Swift intersection improvements, Jadwin pedestrian crossing at Catskill, something that I think Soren brought up was that Island View to Vista Field trail system. Also is one of our unfunded priorities right now. And intersection improvements for Duportail at Kennedy and at a commercial driveway. A lot of other unfunded projects in there, mostly driven by development, that future development that will be coming down the line. New projects added since is Vantage Highway Pathway Phase 4. Another project that was added also is Stevens Drive microsurface that we just got funding for, which was recently added. Removed a bunch of projects because either they were constructed this year or included in another project, and the Kingsgate corridor improvements, we just delayed that beyond our 6-year program. I know that was on the tip last year. And then a new project idea, which I honestly haven't talked to Pete at all about, is SR 240 and Airport Way connection to bypass highway path. So no pretty pictures for me, but that's all that I have.
So, since the Duportail Bridge has been open for a little while now, have you been getting a lot of comments on the bridge, like positive, negative, or anything like that? Or since you've been...
Yeah, most from what I've heard have been positive comments. I know that some people that live on the central Richland side of it, the east side of the bridge, are finding that during peak hour traffic they're having a little trouble getting out of those streets closer to SR 240, but other than that, it's been pretty positive reviews. Yeah,
I use it all the time down here, being on Stevens. Just go right up and head right. It's so much. It's great. I just enjoy it. Next, we have West Richland. Roscoe.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad we got Carlo. Otherwise, Pete would still be talking for the next 30 minutes and we'd be out of time. But Roscoe Slade, Public Works Director for the City of West Richland. Give you a quick overview, focus on what was completed in 2021, or will be shortly. And then I'll go into 2 of our projects that have secured funding. I won't go into the other 20 projects that we have on our 6-year tip, but they're available on our website. So first one is our South 38th SR 224 traffic signal. That's a RCCF funded project, Rural County Capital Funds, through our partnership with Benton County. So that'll be constructed, finished up next month. That's been something that in my career I've had funded 3 times over the last 20 years, and glad to see that finally get completed this year. The other one that got completed was a Harrington Road overlay. This is out on 62nd out towards Twin Bridges. That was a TIB grant, pavement preservation. And that just got completed. They're doing some touch up this month and it's already been paved, but that one's complete. And then our Paradise Way extension phase 4, that's the gap. So if you had, this is the connection that was missing to get you from Bombing Range to Van Giesen. That's currently under construction and estimated to be completed next month. There's also a phase 5 that's being completed by a private developer. So that new Heights at Red Mountain, Aho development, you'll be able to basically get from Keene Road out there, across Van Giesen, all the way back up to Oaks at Bombing Range. So that'll complete that corridor later this year. Next slide, Jeff. One of the big projects we got is a partnership with the DOT. It's the SR224 Red Mountain Transportation Improvement Project. If you recall, this is a Connecting Washington project. It's $26 million. There's a lot of local and private investment outside of that 26 million. The city, you see, has got some money in there, and also Benton County. Currently, they've working on design that's been started. And then the other big thing that's occurred this year is we secured 1.83 million to complete all the water and sewer infrastructure on that corridor in 2022 before the DOT is, I think, scheduled to construct this in 2024. So basically a game changer. You can see the area, it's 3 miles, basically from the post office there near Bombing Range all the way out to Red Mountain Road gets widened, complete street. And then it's got a separated pathway from Keene out to Antinori for that multi-purpose pathway to connect out to the Red Mountain AVA. And we'll be, I think we just reached out to our friends at Transit to identify future transit stops. Even though we don't have routes on this section of the corridor, we'll be reaching out to Kevin and Bill to identify those locations to get those built into the design. This will be nice because it also will have separated bike path lanes, unlike the older portion through the downtown. So much needed improvements through there. So look forward to that. Next slide. And our other big project in West Richland, this one's partially funded. If you recall, we've got some federal STP money in the last go around to do the PE and right away. This is the Bombing Range and Keene Road intersection, pretty busy. We get a lot of traffic from Richland through the Badger South and Benton County Riata people coming down Dallas Road. The ridges really limit how you can head north. And so it comes to this intersection. We've got Keene Road corridor. And so roundabout was there 20 years ago. It's worked. And we used the money to go through and do a study early this year and get public input. Whether that was going to be a double lane roundabout or a signal. And the information basically showed that both would work. Ultimately, council selected the signal, and it was a few factors that really, I think, stuck out. One is the property in the southwest corner with a double lane roundabout was a total take, and the 85-year-old lady did not want to leave her home. Also, on the north side of Keene Road is a regional pathway, and that's heavily used. And if that's a double lane roundabout, that can be difficult to cross those multiple lanes. And lastly, that road on East Latin that serves, there's only 3 ways into that neighborhood, the lakes. I think there's about 600-700 homes there. There's 3 ways in that would be configured to a right in, right out. So ultimately, council decided to go with the signal option. And so right now we're with, well, I should say multiple left turn lanes. And so that one is currently designed, 60% complete. And we just started the right-of-way acquisition. The good news, there's only 5 small little administrative settlements on the corner. So it should be fairly quickly. The schedule is to have it complete right away and designed by the end of the year. And we currently have a pending TIB application in for construction funding. And if not, then we'll see everybody in the spring for the next federal call for projects. So that was it.
20 years that's been in there. Gosh, time flies. Doesn't seem like that long ago. Oh. So when's the police station supposed to be finished, Roscoe?
If you ask the police chief, he'll say November. It'll be middle of December. Well, they'll be into it before Christmas. The contractor is ahead of schedule. Anybody that's looking at a facility, we followed Richland's lead with the progressive design build process. Just been night and day from what we did with the municipal services as far as lack of change orders, really no issues. It's been a pretty smooth project for a $12.5 million police facility. It's gone very smooth, under budget and ahead of schedule. I'd love to say that. So,
All right. All right. Thanks, Roscoe.
Yep.
Any other questions for Roscoe? If not, we'll move on to DOT. Paul said he was going to be a little late. A couple
I'm
minutes.
here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, I was just going to check on the your list, but you're here.
I had a hard time getting in. I had to email Aaron to let me in. I didn't know I needed permission from the boss. So DOT's main coming up in the next 6 years, you can see here, is preservation and safety work. This is the paving preservation that we have coming up, so that you can see when we're coming through your area to do paving. So there is actually quite a bit of, it's a very small list, but we are doing some paving projects in the area. And go ahead and next slide for the Franklin County, and Franklin County has a few projects too, but there's not a lot of paving money around to go around. So that's mainly what we have. Some of the big outstanding that doesn't have necessarily hit the tip yet is that $5 million for the North Richland study and North SR 240 work. Part of that money will go to a roundabout at SR 225 and 240, and the rest of the money is we're still looking at to program that. So that's really the only improvement that's our change in roadway besides safety projects. We have quite a few safety projects coming up and some bridge painters.
That's pretty much all over the state, isn't it? It's all, I mean, the push is just preservation, right? I mean,
Well, that's the only thing we have money to program. Everything else is programmed for us by pretty much the locals. So.
right. Well, this went quicker than I thought. My math was wrong.
Jeff, I got a question for Paul.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the previous slide? Was there
Okay.
work on 224? Was that? I can't see the print. I can't get close
Yeah,
enough.
224 / North 82nd Avenue to Canal Road Bridge. This is new paving.
Won't that get taken care of with our SR 224 Red Mountain project?
It's programmed in there, so that would be something to make sure you communicate with the designers that you can roll that into the project, make your project go farther.
Oh, hey, Roscoe, this is Randy. Having worked in program management back when this project started, the story here was we started PE, it got deferred, and priorities changed. They kept deferring some of our preservation projects. So this one's been deferred. I think it's still being carried on the books, but you're right. I think it's the same area that would be improved by the 224 Red Mountain project. And so they would look at canceling that out or moving those preservation funds elsewhere.
Okay, that was my understanding. Yeah, we are part of pushing that project out because we had a bunch of water infrastructure we did with a reservoir project in 18. But okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Paul, if you don't mind, just a couple more comments. Having been in program management, Paul mentioned some bridge stuff. I think what you'll see in our program is a shift from a lot of preservation work. We're trying to catch up on the backlog of bridge needs. And so we are adding quite a few bridge painters, bridge deck, rehabilitation projects, even a region-wide deck patching project into the program. And so the focus in program management was try to catch up our backlog in bridges, and that's kind of at the expense of the paving program. So you'll probably see reduced HMA and chip seal paving in the region, but you'll see more bridge painters, and some of the notable ones that would affect people in Tri-Cities are going to be the Pioneer Bridge Phase 2. That's in the program, as well as the Umatilla bridges, as well, and the Snake River bridges down by Burbank. And those all have, traffic impacts when we go in and paint those, and floor beam repairs on the Snake River Bridge. But, it's really focused on asset management, but I think you'll see more bridge work and less pavement preservation in the future, in the near future.
Randy, when was the last time the Pioneer or Blue Bridge was painted?
Well,
Been a while,
we just got done with stage 1, a couple years ago, and that was where we did the under deck superstructure. Stage 2 will come in and do the above deck superstructure, and so I think that Pioneer Phase 2 is slated to occur in 23-24. It's like a $16 million painter, and that's going to affect that busy 395. It's actually our busiest route in the region, is that stretch of 395. So.
All right. Well, that's the end. I thought that would take a lot more time. Does anybody have any other questions?
Jeff, with these presentation, you're recording it. Are you going to put it on the council government's website for?
Yeah, we could do that. It's being recorded.
Okay, that'd be great.
And I'm just looking at who we have attending, and I don't see any. They're all names I know. I don't see any names, or maybe from the public or anybody like that, which is too bad, because we did put it in the papers and on our social media. Maybe I should have reached out to the cities and had it put on their social media sites. But it's always been, when these were always in person, though, we'd always have, if we had 10 people from the public show up, that was a really good night. And most of them, it seems like most of the projects that people had questions about were already vetted through the cities and counties. So there would be people with transit questions and things like that mostly. But I don't know how it's going to go in the future, if we're going to have depending on COVID, if it's all going to be hybrid. I know a lot of our meetings and TAC meetings and board meetings seem to be, we get more of a quorum during a Zoom or Teams meetings. I can't imagine having everybody come into our office now that we have moved in this office where we have a conference room that's just big enough to have a meeting. COVID hits, so we moved to virtual. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of months. Traffic count programs going right now. They've got the hose down, many of you probably, in the Richland area, noticed. So that'll be going on until, into November. So hopefully the weather holds up. I can't remember the last time it snowed in the first couple of weeks of November. So I think we'll be pretty good. And then we can get that data out. I don't know. I know it's going to have to be talk with the TAC and the board about. It was supposed to be every 2 years, supposed to be last year. Now we're doing it this year. Do we do it again next year? Do we wait until the year after that and have to get back on a schedule again? But hopefully this goes okay and we get some really good data out of it. And if anybody has any issues or anything, just let me know, and I will get a hold of IDAX if you see hoses up, if anything like that, or there's issues with hoses or counters or anything like that, locations, let me know. They've been very good to work with, so that's going along. Working on our MTP, that's going. So that's gonna be due in May of 2022. Aaron, is that when our?
That is
date is?
at the latest possible date. That is correct.
Okay.
And just to add on to what Jeff is saying, we're also looking into purchasing some big data, so such as INRIX or Streetlight, for multimodal counts, as well as normal ADT, just to stay on the same schedule with our CMP update, or our CMP, which was last collected data in 2019. So just every 2 years and all of that data will be accessible to all of the local jurisdictions as well.
Does Streetlight have bike pedestrian data? Probably not.
Yeah, they
That's
do,
probably tough.
but it's kind of how it gets into the nitty gritty of things, of it's your cell phone and then trying to track it based on speed limit and things like that.
Jeff, could I ask a real quick question? You put up
Sure.
a slide earlier with the call for projects in 2022. I tried to look at them all, but is TAP included in that? Is this a year coming up that we're going to relook at some of the TAP allocations?
Are you talking about the 22 call that we had,
Yeah.
Bill?
Yes, TAP
yeah.
will be included.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't see it on the list, that's all.
Yeah, and I believe anytime there is a call for projects, it's the exact percentage of it. I believe it's around at least 7.9% of all STBG funds have to be allocated as TAP or STBG set aside. So there will always be TAP funds within a call for projects.
Okay, thank you.
And it almost seems like the highway improvement program, the HIP funding, that's been in a yearly, allocation as well in some form of another. And this last time we had COVID, a special HIP COVID amount. So that'll be interesting to see how that changes from year to year. But that's nice to have that funding as well. And then, the infrastructure bill, and things change. And I mean, a few years ago it was all of performance measures, really pushing the performance measures. And this last few years, I'm sure it's going to be the same, but I know we'll have to wait and see. Any other questions from anybody? Boy, I was hoping to have somebody here from the public to ask a question.
So Jeff, the meeting will go on till 5 o'clock.
Okay.
I'll stay on the meeting until 5 o'clock as it was advertised, but the local jurisdictions, you don't have to feel inclined to stay on that long. If there's any people that show up between now and then, Jeff and I can field the questions for that.
Yeah.
And then forward it on to you, or if we can answer it to the best of our knowledge, we'll try to as well.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, I think we have that in our schedule to forward it on next week, but usually don't get many questions or comments. One few and far between, but yeah, we can stay on, and definitely if people do come into the meeting, we can answer their questions or take comments and forward them on to the jurisdictions. But I like to thank everybody for putting these slides together and send them in. I guess we could have went in depth a little more, but of course you don't want too much, but you just want enough. So it's kind of hard to tell how it's going to go and how quickly things are going to go by. I know if Pete was here, you're right, Roscoe, it would have been added some time to it. So,
Hey, Jeff, if you want to throw up our bus electrification slide, if you still got it, I'd go over that in about 20 seconds.
I don't know if now, which one were you looking for?
It was the last slide in our show, was the electrification one.
I don't think I put that in there because I
Right.
didn't think we'd have time for it, Bill.
Okay,
Check
that's all
that
right.
out.
It's a big one though.
Yeah. Did you want to go ahead and just fill us in really quick if
Let
you
me
can
see if I
remember?
can. Pulling it up. I'm going to share my screen. All right.
Okay.
Where are you?
You have a
It's
slide you want?
finding the right screen here. Are you guys seeing that?
No. Do I got to give you
No, I think I'm seeing my screens here.
Bill, this is Chuck, unless, there you go.
Come on. Okay. All right. Let me just shoot down to the last slide. Yeah, just it's a big picture. We're looking at before year 2025, hopefully, having up a whole electrification program, and it includes 25 electric buses by 2026. Pretty big budget. These suckers are coming in, as you see in the graph. We're looking at the first ones that we have budgeted were $945,000 each. And that's 3 vehicles that we actually were given money from the Volkswagen settlement. And so that's in our 2020 budget. We have not selected our type of vehicle yet. So we got a long way to go, but the money's there. We propose to have in 2022 an additional 5 purchased. They take about 2 years to build. And then in 2024, 4 more, but already the cost for each vehicle has gone over $1 million with the escalation. And then finally, the big bulk is really at the end of our program plan, which is 13 more vehicles that we would buy in 2026. And of these, 10 of them are really programmed to run our new high frequency corridor. So every 15 minutes. And with that, we want to put electric charging stations at these new transit hubs that we're proposing. So it's the kind of strategy you need to get ready to buy the infrastructure for in order to switch over to the electric vehicle. That's it. That's all I wanted to give you.
Bill, are there any areas that are, about the size of the Tri-Cities area that have a fleet of electric buses, that a decent sized fleet?
Yeah, there's actually over in the West, there's quite a few that are about our size that did it. Now, one of the things we did hesitate on was the first prototypes that came out really didn't hold up to their advertisements. A lot of them didn't work well in the cold weather. A lot of them couldn't climb the hills. A lot of them didn't have the range they advertised. So those are the kind of things we wanted to make sure got ironed out before we jumped in 2 feet.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm logging off.
All right, well, thank you, Bill.
All right, bye.
Jeff, this is Chuck. Would it be possible to email out the slides themselves?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, because this kind of summarizes a lot of things from a whole variety of tips, and kind of gives me, hopefully it gives me an idea of what's going on in the community without having to read thousands of pages.
Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of nice. Yeah, we can definitely email that out to everyone, and the whole slideshow. That way you can kind of get a broad look at it. And then we also have our tip document online to comment on. It's not quite 1,000 pages, so you don't have to worry about that.
I did go through that too. That's
okay, well, good.
on this.
Wow. I know there's some like some of the transit projects, the Benton-Franklin Transit, they usually amend their projects in January after they've approved their transportation development plan. Um, they've been doing that for the last few years. Things changed when we became a TMA with transit, so they have some more items and things they have to take care of. So, which is no problem, and that would go for anybody if something was not in there that should have been, or something was missed in the draft. But that's, you know, we can always amend projects in. It wouldn't be until January though, and usually those take effect about a month later. So the middle of February is when FHWA would approve them.
They needed to do something in order to get the level of service higher. So they were looking at a four-way intersection like we saw on the slides. I don't know if you're able, are you looking that up right now, Aaron, to pull it up?
Yeah, I can pull it up right now.
Okay, yes. So it was a choice between, yes, this right here, this four-way intersection and a double circle. And there were other discussions that we had about, well, would we be able to shift it one way or another? But in the end, what won out was this four-way intersection, which does make it easier for entrance to East Latin. It also expands to have 2 left turn. Is that right? Now I'm trying to see the picture myself.
It's kind of smaller here.
Yeah. There's, let's see, 2 left turns going south from bombing range onto Keene. A 1 left turn for all the others. Protected turn lanes going north onto bombing range from Keene, and just in general widening, but not to the point where we would have to, that landowner to the southwest, the reason that a lot of people didn't want to do, well, that nobody wanted to do the double circle, at least the way that it was shown, keeping it with the center being where the center of the single is right now, was because it would mean that the person that owns the property to the southwest would have to give up their land. We'd have to buy their land. I actually, now that you mention it, well, I'm not going to debate whether or not I liked it, but I was kind of curious WashDOT's thought on it. But yeah. And then I can't remember, did Roscoe say whether or not we have gotten the monies for this approved, or that we were in process?
I think some of the preliminary engineering was is being, that money is being used right now. I forget what the design was. I can't, what, 60%, I think he said, but
okay.
As far as construction funds, I still think there's needs to be construction funding for that. And he did mention our next call for projects in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something that they would be seeking.
That Kate, based on the slide, it says it's pending, the construction's pending a TIB grant. And then I do, part of this initial engineering was done through the call for projects. And like Jeff just said, Roscoe did allude to hoping to apply for it, more funding in the next call for projects.
Okay, that sounds about right. Yeah, I'm trying to rack my memory. I've got so much going on. I'm trying to keep my brain focused on one issue at a time. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely also, I think Allison, Roscoe would probably be more than happy if you have questions to talk to over the phone or by email to go a little bit further if you've got more questions about it.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I guess just kind of a process question, because since I don't live in West Richland, and I kind of have been following more of the regional planning and just transportation planning somewhat. But I was engaged with the active transportation plan. So from a walkability and bikeability perspective, does removing that roundabout create more hazards for kids who are walking to school, or for the traffic? Is there more potential for collision? And is that something that that's still up for discussion, or is it like that's kind of a done deal as far as the city of West Richland's?
I'm honestly not entirely sure, because we kind of have a rule where we don't debate after a vote, and the vote was done to add to the budget the change to include this. But I would always assume that nothing is a done deal until ink is in the paper and money's in the bank and shovels are already done digging up what they need to dig up. So that would be more of a question for Roscoe. I do have concerns about walkability, because it is a large intersection. You could see from that there are several lanes. Now, there is something to be said about the alternative, the main alternative that was injured, which was a double circle. That also, I mean, based off of how people treat regular single roundabouts, it's somewhat precarious for pedestrians in a single roundabout. Hopefully people will learn how to use roundabouts in general, but that being beside the point, that is something that I am going to be pressing every time for pedestrians, especially since we have the school, and there's a lot of folks that walk from southern Richland or South Richland to Libby Middle School.
Yeah.
And
Allison,
with the high school being there eventually as well.
Oh.
And the elementary.
Sorry, Kate, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
I can give a little background information on that. From a strictly statistical point of view, signalized intersections are safer than roundabouts for bicyclists and pedestrians, but that does have a trade-off on you have more idling vehicles, and which produces can produce air quality issues. And that's the reason behind that is when a bicyclist is coming up to a roundabout, they're seen as they're at the same level as a car, and the car is still moving at it's still moving in the same pace, and you have bicyclists, it's harder for them to get up to the same speed, and there's no roundabout with a bicycle lane. And then for pedestrians, there's no spot for specific, I'm going to say, automobile drivers. Their eyesight is they're fixed on a certain plane, and then where the pedestrians are in a roundabout is not a natural spot for people to be looking as they're navigating a circle. So that's kind of the nitty gritty of what it kind of goes back to what you or Kate said, people not necessarily being the most familiar with driving through roundabouts. We've driven through millions of intersections and not millions of roundabouts yet. But that's just a strictly number-based thing. There are different benefits and pros and cons of roundabouts versus signalized intersections.
Aaron, do you have any information about statistics with metered roundabouts that also allow for pedestrian and bicyclist crossings?
I don't have any off the top of my head, but I can look into some and get back to you.
Okay, I'm just curious, more in general, since, like I said, I don't want to rehash something that had already been voted on, but I'm just in general curious about that. Because I'm a big fan of roundabouts. It's unfortunate that there are people in this area that unfortunately aren't familiar enough to be big fans as I am, as big a fan as I am of them.
Somebody from this is like a year or two ago we're talking from DOT, Washington Department of Transportation, talking about the roundabout the DOT put on state facilities.
Mm-hmm.
They had mentioned, I don't know, since they've started with their first roundabout, there had never been a fatality at a DOT roundabout. But intersections, there have been many. So it's kind of like there may have been wrecks and accidents, but no fatalities. That kind of, when you said there hasn't been a fatality at a DOT roundabout facility, I thought, wow, I never thought about that. And then I thought about the people who always run red lights and this and that. Yeah, it was kind of, I didn't realize that, but.
Yeah, you'll have more accidents at roundabouts, but they'll be like fender benders and things along, very small things compared to the, like Jeff alluded to, like the like T-bones and things along those lines with people running red lights.
And it was interesting because during the staff report, and because there were questions about that, I had actually asked about that as well, there was some comparisons to particular roundabouts in our area and intersections in our area, and the numbers didn't seem to match what I had thought was considered statistical evidence showing what you were just saying, Aaron and Jeff, about how roundabouts typically, while they may have more accidents, they aren't as severe, they aren't as dangerous, costly, more deadly, causing more injuries. So it was interesting, the numbers that were given.
Yeah, and that's I, like you said, Kate, what I'm thinking of is not necessarily a strictly local example. It's from more national.
And maybe we should just have a massive campaign that maybe BFT could help us with, where we teach people how to use roundabouts correctly and safely.
I
so
think
that we can get more acceptance of it,
I-
because people will understand that it's going to be faster in general to go through intersections that are roundabouts rather than waiting in a stoplight.
I agree 100%.
Or we could have like 13 lane roundabouts like they do in Europe.
Oh, yeah, no.
I think that was.
Where I'm from, so I was born and raised in St. Louis, and there is a particular roundabout that I remember very clearly that I think is 2 or 3 lane, and I was terrified getting in there because there aren't a lot of roundabouts, or at least at the time there weren't a lot in St. Louis, so drivers were not the safest in that roundabout. There were a lot of lane crossings that probably shouldn't have happened.
I know you look back in like in the East Coast where roundabouts have been around for like the 20s, you know, so it's like it just everything else kind of starts back there, kind of moves its way west, and then people
music
yeah.
tends to work its way east, and then infrastructure works its way west, it seems.
Yeah.
Arts and culture work east, and then infrastructure works west.
I got a lot of that at the Richland Farmers Market this last time, about roundabouts. You know, are you guys the ones who put in those roundabouts? Usually it's a certain group of people, you know, that don't like to go through them, and you know, it's just I don't think they're that. I think they're great. I mean, especially that one down at Kiona Benton City where that intersection was just awful. And
yes.
Yeah, that one was just, now it's just so
you
efficient.
fly through it practically, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like them. When I was in the Navy, before I got to my ship, I was stationed over on the East Coast in Charleston, South Carolina area, and then up near Albany, New York. And I loved using the roundabouts there because people knew how to use it, and they were put in a way that made them very efficient. I'll have to check out that video that you put in the chat, Michelle, for Idaho Falls.
I know that some of the trucks, larger trucks, have had issues with them. I haven't witnessed it personally, but I'm sure, yeah, I mean, if you get a certain size, it's tough to negotiate. But it's just like it comes down to like the one rule: don't go into a roundabout, slow down. I mean, that's right. You know, if you slow down, you know, it's just don't go through there. You have to be aware, of course, but a lot of people, accidents are because people are just going way too fast through those.
Yes, I did see in West Richland at the bombing range in Keene roundabout, I have seen a truck get stuck there once, a semi, and it was something that was preventable if the driver had been paying attention, understood physics and things like that, because not only did they use the roundabout, they used the roundabout not to go to the right or straight through or to the left. They were trying to do a 360 in a single lane roundabout in a semi, and it did not end up well for them.
Wow.
Luckily, we didn't have anything terribly injurious in the center of our circle there, but they were stuck there for a while.
Yeah, that seems like that's kind of a common sense one there to.
Well, physics always wins.
Yeah,
every
that's
time.
true. I don't know what the equation that the size of the circle to the size of the length of the truck. Should have, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yes,
thank you guys.
I'm
I
hoping we
find this
get more circles.
discussion really interesting because, you know, I really appreciated the level of traffic stress information that was included in the active transportation plan, because I tend to think about like slowing down traffic is safer for people and cars. And like Kate mentioned, if we're really measuring the effectiveness of an intersection based on level of service, that's really about how many cars are moving through the intersection, right? So, and I also, I guess, was thinking about like my kids crossing Keene, you know, to get to school, or crossing Bombing Range. It seems like that big intersection with a lot of fast moving cars. It always intimidates me anyway when I'm letting them ride their bikes and things, or just even walking. But yeah, I think that is interesting, Erin, because it's kind of that inherent conflict in terms of evaluating safety, because statistically there's more risk or injury to pedestrians and bikes in a roundabout than, you know, I guess there's a trade-off there. So that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, and it's against what we would think of, like you said with the roundabout. It just comes to like, you know, that on a roundabout, you know, people are just yielding to you if you're a pedestrian crossing the street. But when you're like, I guess would also be the case for people that are making right-hand turns if you're crossing, or if you're on a crosswalk, but it's still, you know, that traffic is going with you and not eventually going to be crossing you. And then Kate, I just did some quick research and I found on FHWA's website that it comes back to where the metering is implemented on a roundabout. A lot of times if the metering is done well before the roundabout, it doesn't help the pedestrians still crossing at the roundabout, because they still have to deal with the same points of conflict.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just thinking that if there were a way to put a crosswalk that connected with the metering light, I know that most of the time it would be unmetered, and I would hope that there would be some way to at least have the light have something on it rather than just turning it off. I've seen a lot of metered entrances to highways and circles where when they're not using it, they just turn it off, which I know does save in some electricity. But I would think that when you have it off for an extended period of time, people are less likely to look and see if there is a color of light at the meter. So I was just thinking if there would be some sort of a crossing light that's connected with the meter so that it just stops the meter on that side for the crossing, or for all of them. Because there aren't that many people that cross unless it's morning time for school.
That sounds like a cool design of a roundabout, though.
I should just start getting into roundabout design. I don't know. I'm not sure if it'd catch on here, but maybe. I did want to mention something that, and I apologize if this is something that isn't related, but I wasn't sure if at the beginning of the meeting somebody had mentioned that next week the Washington State Parks and Recreations Board is going to be meeting in Richland. They're having a tour of Sacagawea Park, a bicycling tour of Sacagawea Park. If the public wants to join, they'll have to bring their own transportation. whether it's a bike, a scooter, or something else to keep up with them biking. But they are going to be having their meeting at the Richland City Hall. There's a workshop, I believe, it's either the tours on Tuesday and then the workshop after, or it's the tour on Tuesday and then the workshop Wednesday, and then Thursday they have their official meeting. They've got 2 WACs that they're going to be discussing, and it's hybrid. And they should have the information on the state Parks and Recs website. I could probably find that for you. Just wasn't sure if you had been aware. I have a friend that's on the board that didn't remember that I lived in the Tri-Cities and just sent me a message the other day and said, "Hey, are you in Richland?"
And that's a great park, right? You know, where the snake.
Sacagawea?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's gorgeous. I mean, we've got Flat Top and we've got the entrance, that gateway there park, and a bunch of other parks in West. But I mean, I guess if you're going to settle, Sacagawea is okay.
Hi, Dave.
Hi.
You just missed our roundabout discussion.
Well, I'm sorry I missed it because I was hoping to get in, but I had a darn appointment that lasted forever. So, is this being recorded? I mean, can we go back and do it, or did we need to be doing something all along to record it?
It's being recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, with all the housing going up in the South Badger area, I went by there. Well, it's been a while. One of the mornings through that roundabout. It took a while, and that was pre-COVID. But I thought I'd go that way to work when our office used to be at Terminal Drive by the Racket Club, and I came from Prosser. I went down Kennedy and went up there, and boy, yeah, there was a lot of waiting there. But I still didn't think like, oh, I wish there was a light here. That never popped into my mind.
You were going, you said south on Bombing Range?
So I
or
was
were you
going north on Dallas. Well, coming down Kennedy, taking a left on Bombing Range, and then at about 7:30 in the morning or something. It was, you know, it was during the peak AM time.
Right.
And the traffic coming from the west was just, I mean, it was backed up quite a ways.
Right.
And people were just like, they weren't waiting for anything. They were just flying through there. They weren't going to give up any kind of gap. And I thought, wow, this is, I've actually experienced this, and didn't realize how backed up it gets. But
Yeah, I think that the level of service that they found was somewhere around a D, and it was for about 45 minutes to an hour in the morning and 45 minutes to an hour in the afternoon, early evening time frame. And that was about it. And I'm sure that there are folks that have different opinions on using level of service as a reason to widen or create easier paths to flow for traffic. I personally like to listen to Mr. Marin from Strong Towns on what he talks about that, because it's kind of one of those. And I think Allison even connected me with this saying of, if you build it, they will come. You build a road, people are going to get there. It's just like water. You make a road wider, more cars are going to be there because it's wider and they want to take that lane.
Yeah, and Kate, I know that even WashDOT isn't using level of service, or excuse me, I want to rephrase that correctly. Level of service is not their desired criteria for assessing roadways anymore.
Really? Okay.
It still might be used, but like you're mentioning, if they say the criteria is it can't drop below a level of an LOS, let's say C, for example. if it drops to, well, if it drops down to a D if it drops to an F, it's like, okay, well, what can we do? It's already below C, so might as well just let it keep going. So it doesn't really matter that way. And yeah, and there's a bunch of studies that have shown if you actually reduce the number of lanes on certain roadways, it can improve traffic flow because it forces people to have more efficient travel patterns and do other things rather than just having 8-lane freeways and things along those lines.
That makes sense. I mean, it's just like water.
Yeah.
You know, I'm actually curious also. I know that there's a lot of people that have discussed with me about, I've talked to folks that do engineering and also that do planning, and there are folks that have told me that the state emphasizes the use of arterial planning for streets in order to provide money in the form of, well, just in funds in general. Is that true, or is it not so much true, at least anymore? Because I'm curious if that might be a reason why cities are focusing so much on building in this arterial format rather than a grid format or something that's more connected and allows for folks to choose different paths to go each day to work.
I know that it's been where, well, example, and I don't know if this is what you mean, but so let's, like, or Pasco, to get to point A to point B, let's say you want to go to, Road 68 to Road 100 or wherever. Well, people just go on and use a state facility to go do that. They won't go on an arterial. It's much easier for them to get on that. And by doing that, that's where you have issues on the ramps and everything else by people doing that. But at the same time, on those arterials, I think it all has to go back with land use and growth. But yeah, that's the DOT's kind of always been that way. Well, they're not made to like these short little trips from here to here in these towns. But here, I mean, that's how people get around, and you'll find a lot of that. A lot of it's coming in and off the state system where the congestion is and the weight. But it's, I thought that's what you mean. But I know arterials are being a few years ago they've been upgraded to the national highway system. Or not, so it kind of bumps them up into like a more important preservation / funding category.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
Principal
Yeah, where
arterials,
if they're principal arterials or secondary or even tertiary, they are more likely to get funds through particular
Right.
avenues, vice a side road or something that's just a street road.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if there's any way to look at seeing if we can, is that the state or is that federal?
That would be, well, it would more likely be federal, but it would sort of, so much money would go to the state and then it would be through DOT and then that kind of thing. But it's kind of like these, sometimes, there's programs will pop up and these incentive programs and things like that, where there's a certain amount of money, that the state of Washington gets, and then it's kind of, allocated to different areas of the state, different MPOs and things like that. Well, being a TMA, that helps us usually in that a case like that. But that's just something you have to keep an eye out for, because yeah, that's been a big push lately as the principal arterials for the national highway system, and keeping those going.
I just feel like that whole process of emphasizing principal arterials has really been changing, or at least somewhat affecting, the way that streets are planned, so that we have these focused principal and secondary arterials where we focus more about arterials and less about connectivity and grid format for driving. And I'm wondering if there's a way to fix that, because I know that for me, everywhere else that I've lived, I could route, oh gosh, 12 different ways to get from point A to point B using all side streets if I wanted to. And it was easy because there was all this grid format. And it's useful if you have things like major car accidents, fires, different emergencies, things like that, road blockage due to snow or tumbleweeds even. But here we don't have that, and I'm concerned about the safety of that. Because for myself, I was in the Navy, and we had to know several different routes to get from point A to point B in the ship due to safety. Why are we not thinking the same way about vehicles for the public?
Yeah, that's it's kind of like when I lived over in Seattle, I always thought, I'm going to get to point A to point B and I'm going to beat traffic because I have these little shortcuts they know about. Well, everybody had that idea too. They knew about those shortcuts. Really didn't help me, but yeah, it's like, you know, it's I think it you know, and DOT has been pushing land use and zoning and that kind of thing and working together with DOT and the local jurisdictions. And that was a few years ago when they did the corridor studies. But it's kind of sad because things like that kind of just fizzle and you don't hear about it anymore. And I don't know if that's just a case of, you know, leadership changes and, you know, that kind of thing. Now everything's pushed, you know, preservation, you know, bridges and that kind of thing, because funding's more scarce because the federal gas tax hasn't been raised since 1993. So it's been 18.4%. So everything's been a funding package and cars are getting more fuel efficient and, you know, the whole gas tax idea, the more gas you buy, the more you can fund certain things. Well, you know, if that's not the way they're seeing it, and that's why they're looking at pilot programs like Oregon and pay by the mile kind of things and that. And I eventually that's going to be something like that.
Right.
You know, but
And I apologize for taking up all of the time. Dave,
No.
do you prefer to be called Dave? Did you have questions? I know you hopped on.
Not too many, although this discussion you're just having applies to bicycle travel too. The walled-in developments and the main arterials makes it difficult to, you know, find a route that isn't busy, maybe, you know, getting around town also. So.
I've also heard like the Greenway in Richland, a lot of people will bypass that and go on the side streets like Cottonwood just because of this condition of this, the pathway. You know, you have issues that the path is kind of broken up or it's roots, tree roots and things like that. I don't know if that's still an issue or not, but it was easier for people just to kind of go on a side street, you know, one of those, you know, Cottonwood or Birch or something like that, up and down the 240.
You know, I haven't been on that bypass myself for a long time, but the tree root issue was a problem, and it's kind of like your water flow. It'll the people will go where it's the easiest route. So
Yeah, no, and you know, honestly, I was just talking with Francesca, who's with the biking board, I believe, or she's on Bike Tri-Cities.
She's not a board member, but is active in the bicycle business. Yeah. So
yes, I was talking with, yes, exactly. And I was talking with her about, you know, I'd love to bike more in West Richland, but I have this severe fear of bicycling downhill. When I was a kid, I had my brakes give out on my bike and I was not wearing a helmet because, well, to age myself, in the 80s, we didn't do that. It was pretty bad. I almost broke my arm in that too. So I don't like traveling down a steep incline on my bike, which is why I love that we were able to put different incline markings on the bicycle map this year. Thank you again, staff, for doing that. And I was trying to figure out how I would be able to get to Brick House from where I live. And I have to take a massive route all the way around. I could easily, if I wanted to bike downhill and then eventually back uphill, take down Collins Road to Bombing Range, or go to Paradise down Bombing Range to get to Van Giesen. But instead, if I want to go semi-flat, I would have to go all the way out to Paradise, over to Belmont, over to Keene, all the way through Van Giesen. And there's still a little bit of an incline, but not too bad. So I wish that there were ways to mitigate that. I think that there was some discussion also about talking to the irrigation districts and seeing if we could put bike paths next to the canals, which would definitely save time for certain people trying to cut through rather than go next to traffic on those roads.
Yeah, that would be. The canals, they don't have gates or anything on them. They just kind of have a sign that says
Well,
U.S. property and those trespassing.
Yeah, it's for the vehicles for the irrigation district only, and I think the cities are also allowed to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, KID is getting a lot more lenient on that. I don't know about Columbia Irrigation District. Is that the one that comes through West Richland? Which
I think all of them
district?
come through West Richland. We've kind of got a patchwork design where our irrigation districts are in West.
Oh,
I have one neighbor that's in one district and another neighbor that's in the other, and it totally skips me and the neighbor next to me on the other side. Not that I'm bitter.
Yeah, Kate, you're kind of a tough way. You can go way around, or go down Bombing Range, or go up Bombing Range.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've never biked up that, and I've seen people. Well, I don't think I've seen a whole lot of people bike up it, but
I've seen
I
people
think I would.
walk
I
their
think I would
bikes
need
up
definitely.
it.
Need, I would think I would need an e-bike or something.
Yes.
To do something like that.
Is there? Wasn't there going to be a connection down through the Lakes District? Is it 18th or 36th, or I can't remember, on the more of the easterly there? Did that ever get developed? Or is that steep also?
Well, I'd have to look and see because that doesn't ring a bell. And I just got on council last January, and I was on planning commission before, so I was more focused on zoning and less parks and rec. So I would have to go back and look at a map and see. But that's a good question. You're talking about using the lakes as a bike pathway?
Well, I thought there was going to be a connection through there from Van Giesen up to connect into the lakes area up there. I'm talking just partial knowledge here. So.
So you're talking about from Van Giesen to the lakes, you mean by the park, the Lakes Park?
I would think so. I can't remember the street number going up there. Is it 36 or something? That
Oh, you're talking about 38th.
38th, is it or something? I thought that was going to have bike lanes and everything on it possibly. Am I blowing wind here?
I think, gosh, it's been a while since I've been, well, outside, let alone over there. I'd have to look and see.
Yeah, I can't remember how far south that goes.
Yeah.
What it meets up with.
It doesn't go clear through the key, and I'd have to. I just can't picture how all that goes. So, and I haven't been up there, so, and that might be steep also, somewhat.
Yeah, well, and some of it is just, I need to get over that fear. I need to realize that as long as I take my bike in to get fixed up, the brakes are going to work. And wear a helmet, always. Kids, wear your helmets.
There is that. Yeah.
I had a question. Hey, Chuck, are you there? Yep. I had a question. We the office here, we had to do a monthly bike ride, and I chose Columbia Park. And is it that road down there that runs through the park? That's Army Corps of Engineers property, and that's why you cannot do any upkeep or pavement or overlays on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Corps owns that. We maintain it with their permission.
Okay.
And so like, if we have trees that need to be trimmed or vegetation needs to be cut back, we have to go through the Army Corps. They go through whoever they go through, and sometime in the winter we get the answer, but the weeds are gone by then. So that seems to be a big problem. Now the work that they're doing right now is part of that went through the Corps, is my understanding, to, in front of BFT there. Some of that is Corps World and stuff like that. Reconveyance kind of moves some of that out of their world into our world. But right now it's hard for us to justify $1 million a mile, and we have no ownership of it, and they control exactly how we do it. You need 12 inches of asphalt instead of 4 inches, or whatever the criteria would be. So yeah.
So yeah, there's more involved than just tearing it up and putting the new surface in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sorry about that too. Because there's things we could do, but it does need to be balanced. I know Kate, with her experience on planning, you don't want to just open it up. On the other hand, you want to be able to maintain it. But right now, we've locked down, you can't open it up, but we're not being able to maintain it. It's the standard we want to. So absolutely no help there for you, Jeff.
No, that's what I just wanted to make sure that was the case. I'd heard that before about you could, like, it was, you can't touch that road because the Army Corps engineer owns it, and they're, it's kind of like building an an overpass over an interstate. You may have the money for it, but you still have to get the feds' permission.
Right.
Even though the state maintains the interstate, it's their facility, but the state maintains it. So, but it's the feds' final call and that kind of thing. A lot more to it. Now I want to try to bike up Bombing Range Road.
There you go.
See how far I can get.
I definitely would recommend an e-bike that has the assist on it, because that's what Francisca was telling me she uses.
Yeah.
I'll pull you behind a truck or something.
I was trying to, is there any kind of stretch there I can get a good momentum going, but not really. You pretty much have to start right off of, it kind of just goes right into a hill.
Yeah. Unless you happen to get, if you are on, oh gosh, what is the name of the road before it turns into Bombing Range? Is it still Bombing Range up there north? There's the light there at Bombing Range in Van Giesen.
Yeah.
And I think, it's called North 46th Ave. If you get it just right and you time it just right so that it's a green light and you can go south on North 46th to where it changes to Bombing Range right at Van Giesen, you might be able to get some momentum, but you're not going to get a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty flat.
Yeah. And then everybody would drive by me, see me walking my bike up the hill. And they'd say, there's another one. Thought he could go up Bombing Range.
Jeff, I'm sorry, Dave, could I bug you for a second? There is a constituent I have by the name of Fred Litsky, and he bikes the Sacagawea Trail. And he's had issues with, the signage looks crappy in multitudes of jurisdictions, that kind of stuff. And I was trying to put him in contact with, a population that's invested in making that look better. would you be the right person? You're a bicycle guy? I know that sounds not putting it right, but.
You're asking me? I didn't quite
Yeah.
catch the beginning of that. Pardon?
Are you
Or Alan?
coordinate a lot of bicyclists or I'm not a bicycle guy. If it doesn't have four wheels, I don't do it because it's too much work. But
Well, Bike Tri-Cities is a bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organization. So we try to work with the different jurisdictions and the combined jurisdictions, especially here in the Tri-Cities. But what happened to that wayfinding work that was done a few years ago? I thought was going to kind of standardize a lot of the signage around the whole Tri-Cities. Is that still in play or?
yeah, finding is still going. Oh, I'm sorry, Allison.
Oh, was that track or the?
I thought it was part of the whole My Tri, but I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
the signage has gone up for wayfinding, but Fred had a specific issue about the Sacagawea Trail and the signage on that, people shoot holes in it, graffiti, that kind of stuff, as well as maintaining the overall condition of the road jurisdictionally. And so Bike Tri-Cities sounds like that would be a good organization for him to find some advocacy, because he works really hard at this. And so I will use that and say, Fred, contact these folks because they can help you advocate for this.
We would, we always love more volunteers.
Yeah, and Fred, I mean, he's one of those guys that gets in and will work and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've got enough emails, I can prove it.
What was the name again, Chuck?
It's Fred Linsky. It's Lieske.
That name doesn't ring a bell, but
He's,
no, if you want to get a hold of us, have him do it, because he can talk directly to some of the powers that be too. But no, that's the kind of thing we like to know about and work on. And it goes back, some of that ends up back probably on council of governments table a little bit, because you're the all around jurisdictional people.
yeah, and I think that's the frustration.
We all try to work together. That's our goal anyway, and council of governments. And because, man, you can go out on a bike and within a couple hours ride in I don't know how many different jurisdictions if you want to, and different, and when you consider different parks, who owns them and manages them, and let alone all the different portions of trail. And yeah, it gets a little cumbersome at times. So
Well, I'll get a hold of Fred and let him know, get a hold of you guys.
Sure.
And yeah, he's newer to the area. He was a pharmacist, and I think it was, I want to say Othello, but I'm not absolutely sure. So yeah.
I'm actually grew up out in the basin myself, so, and spent time in Othello and Connell and stuff. So no, have him get a hold of us and see what we're talking about. I don't know where these signs are. I haven't been down there much myself for a while, but there's tackweed, and there's a lot of issues on the trails all the time that need to be taken care of. So, and that goes back to a question I might ask you, Chuck, too. Who's responsible for the tackweed, like in Columbia Park, or not tackweed, but any of the noxious weeds in Columbia Park? Is that go back again, kind of restricted by the Corps of Engineers, what you can use? I know on the Pasco side, we've had some issues of what we can use to control some of the problems on the bike trails there. So
same thing, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have a phone number I could give to Fred that you're comfortable giving out, or?
Sure. My email might even be better.
There you go.
And it's just David Beach, BEACH 47 @gmail.com.
And so just make sure David Beach at 47. I'm sorry, David Beach 47 @gmail.com.
Yeah, that's it. Or Google, if that doesn't, for some reason, doesn't get through, Google Bike Tri-Cities or something. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Was there any discussion here? This is probably carrying on longer than you thought, but about the Vista Field to Richland Y project, that's the study that's going on there now that involves Kennewick and Richland?
Yeah, the Kennewick did mention that planning study, and they
Okay.
said the initial results. I think Aaron were going to be available and pretty soon.
That's from what they stated earlier. The results should be within the next couple weeks.
Oh, their initial
planning study for that.
Their whole plan, or just
initial results?
Okay, and then they were talking about a public hearing or something in, what was it, October, November, was it, or?
I'm
that
not
I don't
sure.
know. I just know that they had through the TIP process, a call for project process, they were awarded planning or funds, which they
Right.
used for planning study. And but I'm not sure exactly how far, if it was a planning study, say, okay, is this feasible? What's the best route? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of weeks what that planning, that study has in it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that myself, to see just what I was hoping they would come up with a whole bunch of alternatives, for us to sort through, maybe, or for the engineering, and, what's really practical and what isn't, and looking at the future plans, 10 years down the road, how things are going to look too, where would be the best place to put some of these alternative transportation routes. So.
All right. Well, it's 5:02, and Kate mentioned Brickhouse Pizza, and that made me really hungry. So I'm gonna have to go get pizza now, I think.
It's a good place to go, and then
It
maybe
is.
afterwards you could go to Lazy River for a pint or
Oh, is
something.
that still open?
Yeah. Well, actually, what is today? Yes, they are open today, I believe.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. I haven't been there forever.
And
Yeah,
then
good stuff.
pickle up Bombing Range Road.
that's right. Give me more courage.
Oh yes,
Right.
there you go. Liquid courage, and then you could go up to bombing range and maybe get
Yeah.
dessert from Italiano's.
Yeah, there you go.
Or get some tacos from Jose's. He's got a place
Yeah.
right there at Paradise
Jose.
gas station.
Or a bag of those chocolate chip cookies from Yolks.
There
for
you go.
$5.
Yeah.
The other option is Jeff gets the instant or the liquid courage, and after tonight, Olivia moves up on the seniority list.
That's right. Jeff didn't make it into work.
Well, thank you so much, guys. You did a great
Yeah,
job.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank